Hi everyone. I'm gonna just make sure this works. Okay, I'm Zach Singer. I guess last time I gave a talk for this NHS, I was the research archaeologist. Now I'm the state terrestrial archaeologist, and I'm pleased to share about archaeological opportunities all around the state of Maryland. First off, here's a site. Here's a photo from the Barton Archaeological Site in Allegheny County, Maryland. Well, we're on a mountain overlooking the site in the distance, but that was one of the projects where we've had lots of volunteers over the last 2 years. First, the main way to hear about opportunities with the Maryland Historical Trust is to fill out our volunteer form. So there's the link at the top here. Basically, this brings you to a website that says, if you want to volunteer, fill out this Google form. And the Google form, you put in your contact information and what opportunities you're interested in. And then we go to that list when we have opportunities around the state. So say if you're interested in work in Garrett County, which we're rarely out that far, but when we are, we would email the people in Garrett County and say, hey, we're out in Western Maryland. Do you want to come help on a project? Same thing for Baltimore County. Another big opportunity that I want to share now is our internship opportunity for this summer. So this is particularly for current graduate students in archaeology or anthropology, students who are currently enrolled in undergraduate programs who recently graduated, and they should also have already done a field school or have some sort of equivalent. So if you here are qualified, that would be great. Please apply. Or if you know any young archaeologists who are interested in a paid archaeology internship, there's the link again, the upper left. But the deadline for applying is February 13th. So there's still a little bit of time. Please share this opportunity. And what the intern does, they work at our office at the Maryland Historical Trust, which is in Crownsville, Maryland, outside of Annapolis, and then join us on all of our projects for the summer. And I'll talk about some of those projects now. The other big opportunity that I'm sure Katharine Fernstrom is also going to mention, because this is a joint collaboration with the Archaeological Society of Maryland, is the annual field session in archaeology. And this year we're returning to the same site where we worked last summer, which is the Teagues Point site. This site is in Charles County, Maryland at Maxwell Hall Equestrian Park. And we'll be there from May 22nd through June 1st, every day, weather permitting. What you see in this image, we did a ground penetrating radar survey two winters ago, found large pit features last summer with many volunteers, averaging between 40 and 50 volunteers a day. We excavated through the plow zone to expose these features. And they are very rich in colonial artifacts from the 1680s to 1710s. So this summer we'll be further exploring these features as well as trying to learn more about the site patterning at Teagues Point. So for more information, again, there's the annual field session website, which will be updated soon with information for 2026. Right now it talks about the 2025 field session. Another upcoming opportunity that we'll be seeking a specific audience for is a Scouts of America merit badge. And so this opportunity, it's for 2 weekends coming up. The event's held usually at the end of April and into early May. We're going to be sending additional information in February, but this year this event will be at Fort Frederick State Park. And so we'll be looking at some of the historic resources there. So if you know any Boy Scout programs, same thing, up at the top of this page is our website, and there's an interest form. You can see it's highlighted in red here, which Scouts can click and say that they're interested in learning more, and then they'll be included when we send out the additional information for how to get their archaeology merit badge. So we're having meetings now to finalize this, but that is the plan. Fort Frederick State Park, Boy Scouts or Scouts of America earn their merit badge over the course of 2 weekends. Oops. And then another great opportunity with the Maryland Historical Trust is, I still says Scout Merit Badge. It should just say archaeology programs. our volunteer archaeology lab is at 100 Community Place in Crownsville, Maryland. And we meet most Tuesdays and Thursdays between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And we're processing and cataloging and preparing artifacts for permanent curation at the Maryland Archaeological Conservation Laboratory. So we work on all sorts of projects. Right now, the big projects are the artifact collections from the field sessions. So everything we excavated last summer at Teagues Point, we're almost finished washing now, and we're going to begin cataloging in the next week or two. But then we also get other projects that come up. So there's some pre-contact archaeology that we've done around the state, and we're preparing those artifacts as well. And other collections that are already at the Mac lab that need to be rehoused and cared for, we also do some of that work. So this is a great volunteer opportunity. Again, most Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you fill out that volunteer form, you'll learn more about it. Or at the end, I'll have my email address if I can send you an email to, or you can send me an email to. And then, as mentioned, there are other opportunities that just kind of crop up throughout the year. So you'll really want to be on our volunteer list. So on the left here, we were out in Allegheny County at the Barton site, which was that first photo. We had around 40 volunteers a day using a machine called the Paleo Digger to dig 10-foot deep test holes to find deeply buried Ice Age occupations at the site. So that was really fun. That was in September of this year. And we also go around the state doing ground penetrating radar surveys occasionally, and we have a need for volunteers to assist with those as well. So on the right, you can see a colonial pit feature and the ground penetrating radar that found the pit feature. So those are some of the opportunities that the Maryland Historical Trust has to offer. And another great place to look for archaeology opportunities is for Maryland Archaeology Month. So there's a website, marylandarchaeologymonth.org, which will begin to be populated soon with volunteer opportunities all around the state of Maryland, focused on April, which is Archaeology Month. But there are other opportunities that are present on that website that would lead to year-round opportunities. And so we don't have a poster yet designed, but this year we're studying the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, as everyone around the USA is. And our theme is 250 years, many voices, digging into Maryland's story. So if you visit the Maryland Archaeology Month website, you'll be kept up to date on opportunities and how everyone around the state will be celebrating Archaeology Month in April. So thanks, everyone. My email address is there, zachary.singer@maryland.gov. Please feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to follow up with those links. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Zach. That's great. I have a question about the work that you're doing at Crownsville on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do you have to have experience with cleaning? Oh no, I think you've frozen.
He's frozen. No, you don't have to have experience.
Well, that's good to know. Does
Zach,
anybody, I guess, I don't know if Zach has made it back. If you have a question for Zach, please put it in the chat and I will make sure to email it to him. And I also put his email, I will send his email out to everyone in an email so you will have access.
So
And with that,
when
are you
I
back?
when I clicked X to close out my PowerPoint, I double clicked and it closed out everything.
Oh, so I had just asked whether or not you needed to have experience to come and work on any of the artifacts for the cleaning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Kat had said that you don't need to.
No, no, yep. Anyone's welcome. We'll train you up. Every lab, as people who go around these labs will know, it's kind of similar, but there's always kind of just things that are lab specific. So we'll train people on how to do it. No experience necessary, just a willingness to learn and get a little dirty when we're washing artifacts.
Somebody asked, is there a phone number to call before going to the Tuesday, Thursday cleaning session so that you can confirm it's occurring before you drive there?
Yeah, so it's not a drop-in thing. I have a lab list because we have more people who want to come than we can typically accommodate. Our lab isn't enormous. So we typically have 12 people a day. So you'll want to email me and I'll add you to the lab list. And so every Monday I send out an email with a sign-up sheet to gauge interest. And I try to make it fair and give everyone an opportunity to participate.
Thank you. That's good to know. Another question in the chat. For the Scout Merit Badge, does the entire troop need to volunteer to participate, or can an individual scout come?
Individual scouts can sign up. It's any scout who wants to earn their archaeology merit badge. So it does not have to be a whole troop.
So if nobody else has any other questions for Zach, if you have more at the end, you're welcome to ask. I'm going to let Kat Sterner from Towson University talk to us about what she knows what's just going on with archaeology in the state.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to mute myself.
I do have a presentation here. I'm gonna share my screen. Can you guys see that okay? Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm Kat Sterner. I'm a professor at Towson University, and I am the director of the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab there, which is sort of a public-facing archaeology entity at the university. And I'll talk a little bit about what the lab does. I'm also the volunteer archaeology curator at NHSM, so I'm familiar with the NHSM collections and kind of what the archaeology situation is there. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about sort of is what the history of archaeology in Baltimore and public archaeology in Baltimore is, to kind of explain why the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab does what it does. So, there's been a lot of folks doing, not a lot, there's been folks doing archaeology in Baltimore for a long time. And really, from a professional standpoint, the NHSM really had its hands in it from the beginning with Richard Stearns, who's documented archaeological sites all over the state of Maryland starting in the 1930s. And then much of the archaeological work in Baltimore that followed was done by the Archaeological Society of Maryland. And then by the Baltimore Center for Urban Archaeology, which was funded by the city and set in the city life museums. Unfortunately, with the change of administrations in the 90s, that was the City Life Museums were defunded and closed, and so was the Baltimore Center for Urban Archaeology. And that really kind of left a gap in sort of institutional archaeology programs in Baltimore, outside of the MHT in Crownsville, which is sort of close, but not right in Baltimore. And so there were some grassroots groups that really came to fill in those gaps. One of which was the Herring Run Archaeology Project. Many of you may know about them since Lisa Krause and Jason Schellenhammer were the curators of archaeology at NHSM before me, and did a lot of public outreach around that project. And Baltimore Heritage has also sponsored several archaeology projects in the city in the last decade or so. But these have all been kind of little one-off things that are people, archaeologists, doing sort of on their weekends and their free time when they can take a week off. And so we really saw a need for a institutionalized public archaeology program in the Baltimore area. And so that was why we created the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab at TU in 2023. And these were some of the reasons, that there's a lack of county or city historic preservation regulations in comparison to some other counties in Maryland. And not a lot of institutional support at educational institutions for archaeology. There's a lack of lab space for doing that post-processing once you're out of the field. And a lack of public awareness on the difference between looting and archaeology, which are not the same thing. So we really wanted to get the word out there about what archaeology in Baltimore looks like. So some of the goals of the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab were focused on TU students and providing career opportunities for them. And I'll talk about how we do that. And also specifically working on preserving historic resources on TU's campus. But we really wanted to involve the Baltimore community in determining what archaeology happens where, and really let the community guide those projects. So the work that we do is funded two ways. In a small bit, directly invested by Towson University, where we're able to get some internal funding, but most of what we do is funded through external projects. And so some of those things that Zach was talking about, like doing ground penetrating radar surveys, those are things that not everybody can do, but we have staff to do it. And so other companies or programs or institutions can hire us to do that sort of work. And that gives our students some paid experience while they're at TU. So sometimes we get those contracts where people reach out to us and ask us to do that work. And sometimes I apply for grants and I reach out to funding agencies and ask for our work to be funded. So in the past 2 years, we've done a lot of ground penetrating radar surveys of cemeteries. You'll see an ongoing trend there. And as Zach mentioned, that's something that we do have volunteers participate in. So I have 3 ongoing right now, one in Towson, one down in Brooklyn Park, and we have another one that we're probably going to be starting in the Towson area as well. So in addition to that, though, we do some additional kinds of projects, and I just want to give you a couple examples. So this is one of those ground penetrating radar surveys. Zach, I swear you'll be getting this report soon. This is the initial survey that we did for Fairview United Methodist Church. This is a historic African-American church in Carroll County. And the church got a grant to hire us to do the ground penetrating radar survey so they could see where all of their graves were. They have 211 marked graves, and we found 260 anomalies that look like burials. And actually, we added a new little strip after this picture was taken, and we found a bunch more close to the road. Yeah, just like we were worried about, Zach. So this is, one sort of example of that. This is one of our larger GPR surveys. So we do kind of a wide range. I did one in somebody's side yard recently where we found 11 ground, using that radar. So really a wide range of GPR projects that we do. We've also done some just lab processing work for other entities. So we had a contract with the National Park Service to do all of the cataloging of the materials that they excavated from the Travis Plantation on Jamestown Island. And so we did that for about a year. We just finished wrapping that work up. We had volunteers in our lab as well as students, and we have one high school intern who worked on that project for us as well. So, some of these are these paid projects that we're doing to paid students, and then we have some community initiated projects that are just sort of little things that the community reaches out and asks us to do. The first one of these was another ground penetrating radar survey in Lake Roland County Park. And there were some standing stones that they thought might be grave markers, might not be. And so we did a GPR survey. We also did an archival search to find out, yes, this is a cemetery. When was it being used? And who was using it? So we were able to kind of give them that information and the resources to document it and preserve it as best they're able, and those with their staff and volunteers. I'll talk about the strange pit in a second because that gets its own whole slide. And we've also got an ongoing project at TU that landscaping volunteers reached out to me when they found ruins on campus. So I got an email. I should have screenshotted the email because it was one of my favorite email titles, which was "Strange Pit in My Basement." That somebody emailed me about the strange pit in their basement after they had recently bought this 1870s home in Moncton. And we're pretty sure it's a root cellar, but there was a tunnel originally that led out of it to the outside of the house. And so we think that there might be some other connotations there. So this portion of the house was built in the 1870s, but there's an earlier portion of the house that is earlier. So there's some lore around the Underground Railroad, and we found this cemented in tunnel that leads to the outside of the house. So we're just digging in this homeowner's strange pit in their basement. They got to keep all the artifacts, and we wrote up a little report of everything that we found. Most of the fill was from the early 1900s, late 1800s, when they filled in the strange pit, probably so that things would stop coming through the tunnel into their basement. So this is a homeowner who just reached out to us, and it was a day's worth of work to check this out with them. One of the bigger projects that we did last summer was we got a grant from the Maryland Historical Trust to hold a 5-day professional development workshop for K-12 teachers, where we had 13 teachers who participated and received continuing professional development credit to participate in this workshop, where they learned how to do archaeology, how to work with descendant communities, how to include archaeology in their lesson plans specifically. So the outcome of this was each teacher put together a lesson plan that are now hosted on MHT's website, so that other educators can utilize those in their classrooms. And finally, one project that we just wrapped up this fall was a 2-part project. The Congressman Perrin Mitchell House in West Baltimore, which is the home of the first African-American congressman from Maryland. It is being turned into a community center by the Upton Planning Committee in that neighborhood. They're adding on a wing to the back of the house to make it ADA accessible. They needed us to make sure that they're not going to destroy anything significant in the back of the house before they do that. So we did another ground penetrating radar survey, found some interesting things. So we thought we better excavate a couple of units to make sure there wasn't anything that was going to be a problem for the construction. And we found the old carriage house, it looks like, on the back of the property. It's buried fairly deeply. It's about 1.5 to 2 feet deep. And it's not in the area that they're going to do any excavating. So we don't think there's going to be any negative impacts to that. But we were able to document when the carriage house was demolished, because we have beer bottles from Monumental Brewing, which was only open from 1901 to 1911. So somewhere between 1901 and 1911. Some guys were drinking some beers and eating a bunch of turkey legs and knocking down a carriage house. So and we have a couple public days that we do on each of these field projects to make sure that the local community is able to be involved. So we've got a couple things in the works for 2026 already. We have high hopes for funding for another teacher workshop out at North Point State Park again. Last year, we were not able to have the public, general public come out and work with us at the park because of construction there. But this year, we plan on a very large public component of it. And so we're really looking forward to doing that again. So the teachers will be out there at the end of June, but my crew will be out there for the entirety of June. So we'll be providing some public opportunities that whole month. We also got a grant from the Maryland State Department of Education to develop and implement a 3-week summer program for Indigenous middle and high school students. This is in collaboration with the Piscataway Conoy tribe. And they're helping us develop our curriculum. We're kind of in the midst of this right now, finishing up writing the curriculum for this project. And we're going to be kind of splitting our days between working with Piscataway knowledge keepers on traditional ecological knowledge and working with archaeologists in the field in the lab to kind of see how we can combine these two approaches to understanding the past. So our first run of that, this is a 3-year grant, funds 3 years. So our first run will be this summer in 2026 in Charles County. And then finally, when I first started at TU, we did kind of a little survey at Auburn House, which is the only at this point historic property on TU's campus. Was originally built in 1791. And then it burned down, and there's a long history there. So the house itself isn't original, but there's lots of interesting things on the property of the house. And I have this nice photo from 1900. It isn't actually that nice because the bottom half of it is destroyed, which makes me very sad. But one of the things that you'll notice is in the foreground, there's a little building and there's a tax inventory from 1915 that mentions a gardener's house. So we think this is the gardener's house, and there is no trace of this gardener's house anymore. So as part of kind of an ongoing effort by TU to have a better understanding of, there's 3 other outbuildings at Auburn House. One of them is a formal Italian garden, which is still there. It's down in the damaged part of the photo, so you can't see it on this photo. And pump house over the original spring that pumped water up the hill to the mansion. And then there's this foundation, well, there's this gardener's house thing that is no longer there. So we're going to try to work through figuring out if we can relocate that, doing some survey this spring. So that's another thing that we'll have some public opportunities for. I see Bill Curtis has got some Auburn connections to the Ridgely family in the chat. So yes, thanks, Bill. Well, we're in those Auburn or those Hampton archives working on that. So I just wanted to wrap up by saying, there's a few ways that you can get involved. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And whenever we have public events, we make sure to post those well in advance there. We have a quarterly newsletter. The next one of those will be coming out in February of 2026. And that will have any upcoming events that we have on the calendar listed. We also have an events page on our website, which is regularly updated with any kind of public days that we have. And then lastly, if you have artifacts that you've collected, or you know people that have artifacts that they've collected, especially from around the Baltimore area. We're really trying to nail down where some of the archaeological sites are that those came from. So I'd love to see your collections. People bring them by my office all the time. And in fact, I have to dig a shovel test in a West Towson residence garden sometime when the ground isn't frozen. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one, Zach. I brought a really nice quartz projectile point, probably late archaic, to my office to check out. So we're really trying to expand the knowledge, particularly of pre-European sites in the Baltimore area. And so that's really what we're focused on. But you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to kind of loop you in whenever we have opportunities. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for sharing all that really exciting research that you guys are doing at Towson. I had no idea you were in so many different places. How can our members join your newsletter?
So you can just email me and I'll add you to the list.
Excellent.
I'll put my email in the chat. Dan Dean, I see his comment in the chat here. Yes, there was a CHAP requirement, and MHT has an easement on Congressman Mitchell's house. So that was why there was a requirement for the survey. We have a lot of West Baltimore stuff going on right now. The Perrin Mitchell house and Upton Mansion are kind of 2 blocks from each other, so I've been over there a lot.
Very cool. It'll be exciting to see what you find.
Yeah, we found an original 1800s greenhouse at Upton Mansion, which was, I mean, it was a lot of terracotta pots, as you might expect. So that was really exciting, though. The foundation was preserved beneath about 1.5 feet of fill, so it was right there still. It's the nicest greenhouse I've ever seen. Really very nice foundation.
Thank you so much. If anyone thinks of any questions or comments for Kat, please put them in the chat or send her an email. And with that, I'm going to ask if Katharine Fernstrom, the Vice President of the Archaeological Society of Maryland, would like to speak about what they have going on.
Sure, I'm a little less formal. I don't have a slideshow. We send a lot of emails around. What I'm going to put in the chat, if you don't mind, I'm logged on here with my home email, which is only showing up in fragment, but I'm going to put in my, in the chat, I'm going to put in my ASM email. It gets a lot easier for me at, is it Maryland? I think it's, if I get that email all in one place, otherwise I'm chasing it. Maryland Archaeology. Otherwise, I'm chasing all the subjects through all my emails, and I have 4 of them. And that's Maryland Archaeology dot. Zach, do you know if it's .org or .com? Maryland Archaeology?
I think it's .org, but I can check.
.org, okay. I hope that's right. I don't want to leave my screen and go look it up. I'm sorry for the pop quiz. I apologize. So what I do is all volunteer, working with the central chapter, which still needs to be formalized in terms of its legal relationship with the state, and setting up a bank account. I'm behind in that. So I need to do that. But I do send out communications to our central chapter members, people who are interested in our activities when we come to pay dues and put them in the bank. I don't know how many people will formally sign up, but I'm always happy to hear from people. The activities that ASM has coming up, that's central chapter, which is separate from, so we have a number of county chapters, central chapters, Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And then we have a Howard County chapter. We have Charles County, Anne Arundel County, There's a Western Maryland chapter, which I think has been involved with Zach and Bob Wall on the Barton site. And then there are a couple of other chapters across the state. And people join the chapter they're most comfortable with it, whether it's the chapter closest to where they work or the chapter closest to where they live, or a chapter that has activities going on that they're particularly interested in. There's no formal requirement that you join a specific chapter. We have coming up next. So the work I need to work on, Dan Dean is here. I see that you're here, Dan. I do need to catch up with you and come back to Marshy Point and take care of those collections that need to be sorted and labeled. We've also been off and on working with, and I'm probably speaking out of turn at this point, with Nina Brown over at CCBC, trying to identify the nature of the cemetery there. There's a family cemetery without being intrusive at all. Not ever, ever, ever considering intrusive, but having done a lot of archival work, trying to understand the full nature and extent. We've had two GPS, yeah, GPS. Is that the one? GPR, GPR?
GPR.
GPR, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm writing art history syllabi right now. And I use my Google GPR all the time, GPS, whatever. Alphabet soup. You can laugh at me, it's okay. Laugh at me, please. We've actually done 2 ground penetrating radar studies of that cemetery area inside and outside. And it looks interesting, but the college is not inclined to pursue it any further, is my understanding. So we're open to projects in the county, but we are limited by the fact that we're all volunteer and also seasonal. So I teach art history, anthropology, and archaeology at MICA and at Towson University. And so my plate's quite full at the moment. Let's see, ASM in general, switching hats. We have coming up in April, which is Archaeology Month. We have coming up the Spring Symposium, which is usually a gathering. We have 6 or 7 speakers coming up. That day it is, I didn't write down the day, I think it's April 18th, Saturday, April 18th. We have a collection of speakers, Kat speaking, Kelly Palich from Howard County is speaking. She runs the Howard County chapter, and she also works for the county Parks and Recreation department there. We have Jim Gibbs from Charles County, and he works with the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, and runs a archaeology company. We have Troy Novak, who is the underwater archaeologist, who also, I think, has public programming available. I don't have it with me. I should have thought to tap him for a list of his activities. That's what he's going to talk about at the symposium, are the activities with the underwater program, which is separate from Zach's program, correct? Is that right, Zach?
We collaborate, and we're trying to collaborate more, but yes,
Okay.
Troy I'm the state terrestrial archaeologist, and Troy is the state underwater archaeologist. And so,
Okay.
Yeah, he has his own opportunities as well. So it's great that he'll have an opportunity to share that at the symposium.
That's what he tells me he's going to talk about. We don't, not being particularly thematic this year. It's what people feel like bringing to the table. I think Jim's talking about some depositional and soil condition projects over the years. Kat, you told me what you were talking about and I forget, but we know that I'm not doing well on the memory track right now. I think Kelly's going to talk about Blandair. Troy's going to talk about upcoming activities. John Kernan is talking about Kaiser Complex, and one of Kat's students, I've probably got the name wrong. I didn't bring the list. I'm not organized. One of Kat's students is going to talk about one of their projects, one of their choices of projects. I don't think we've settled on it yet. But we do have a dedicated spot in the symposium for a student speaker. Every year we make sure that we have someone coming up with new research and new ideas to speak to our attendees. And we also have a couple of named lectures of folks that have been significantly important in the history of the Archaeological Society of Maryland. And we give, and 2 of our speakers will speak in their memory and their honor. In the fall, we have the Maryland Workshop. which is an opportunity to study collections, to have very specific topical lectures from experts. And that takes place in Crownsville, as does the Spring Symposium. I think Zach's talked about the field school, the field work session. I think, Rebecca, can you think of anything else that you want me specifically to talk about? I wasn't really sure of the nature of this presentation, so clearly I didn't prepare as well as the others.
Oh, that was great. I personally know very little about archaeology in the state and the organization, so I was just hoping to sort of get an overview of what's going on with the organizations in the state that participate in archaeology and what opportunities they have for our members and the public. So someone asked about the symposium as where it's held and whether and who is allowed to attend.
Anyone is allowed to attend. We love all people, and it's held in Crowdsville. And it's usually announced in the ASM Inc., which is our ASM newsletter. If you're a member, you're receiving it. If you're in my central chapter, I'm sending it out as now that I've actually just gotten it sent over to my ASM email. I intend to send it out more often. It was getting sent to my personal one and getting buried in all of the other emails of life. And so digging it out was becoming a challenge. I send that out to everybody who's been interested in central chapter so they know what's going on with us and they know in general what's going on with ASM, even if they're not a member. But I do strongly encourage folks to join ASM and become a member and get involved in the opportunities. There are always opportunities listed in the newsletter. And what else goes out? Yeah, and chapter notes and chapter news, as I said. If there are members here of NHSM that are interested in places across the state, we have chapters across the state that you could connect with.
Is there do all
Dan's right.
the
Thank you, Daniel, for the plug. You don't have to stay there the whole time. And I
Oh
usually
yeah,
send
Daniel says
I
the
usually send
symposium
out the
is great.
program. Yeah, I usually send out the program so people can pick and choose.
Does your newsletter only cover each chapter so you would get or does it cover all of the activities for every chapter in the state?
No, it covers all the activities if the chapter president sends something in. But
Excellent.
usually, even if they don't send something in, the contact information for the chapter is there.
Do people need to register?
No.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we don't have a presenter yet for the February meeting. I'm waiting to hear from people, but if anyone in the club or people who are interested in archaeology have ideas for presentations or thoughts about what kind of topics you want to hear about in archaeology, we would love to hear from you because it helps us to try to schedule things for the meetings. Kat asks, will the symposium ever be hosted at Towson?
No. That's the short
The
answer.
Spring Symposium? The ASM?
Yeah, the ASM one.
That one?
Yeah, the ASM one.
I think we've always held it by tradition at Crownsville. And I know in the past, let's see, what was I trying to do? Oh, in the past, I was trying to hold chapter meetings of ASM of our central chapter when I first took it over. And I approached, I think I approached a couple people at Towson and their liability requirements were so intense that it was not something I was willing to broach. And I went to Micah and we met at Micah, and that was just before the pandemic. So in the pandemic, we were meeting in person beforehand at Micah, and then when the pandemic came, of course, we went online, and then we stayed online. People are coming from several counties away. In weather like tonight or the storm we're about to get this weekend, nobody wants to go out and drive, and we usually can meet without interruption if we do it by Zoom. So that's what we've been doing.
When do you have your meetings?
I haven't had any lately. They were used to be, I think, on a Wednesday, and my Wednesdays just got so crowded that I couldn't do it anymore. And we also need a bank account because I tapped out all the volunteer speakers for no pay. And so really getting the bank account up and running is I think is the necessary thing. I know many people that could speak would be happy to speak, but at this point I feel that we should offer an honorarium for that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I would really like to know what folks at NHSM and the club are interested in hearing about. I think you brought that subject up originally also.
I know Dan has spoken to us about his work his volunteer work that he's done at Marshy Point, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if we have any other members that are also engaged in any archaeology of their own.
I spoke a couple years ago when Matthew was there about work that I've been doing with pre-contact human figures, a subject that has for some reason slid under even the National Archaeology radar. For some reason, it doesn't get approached, and I've been surprised at that lack. But I've been absolutely thrilled to engage with it myself and to put it on the table and bring it forward. It's some very interesting prehistory of what figures are made out of, material-wise, what kind of poses they take, what kinds of things they tell us about long distance relationships across political boundaries, across prehistoric political boundaries, and not just, I think probably of a broader scope than household pottery, which we're all really familiar with, but the human figures, I think, have a different story to tell us. The figure behind me in the slide, it's an oblique image, but what you're seeing next to my head is the shield of a figure on a cliff in Utah. You can see his necklace just above right there, and his shield is right here. He's called the Sun Carrier, and he's one of 3 petroglyphs on a cliff in Utah called the Three Kings. They're quite famous in rock art history across the Americas, and we have awesome rock art here in Maryland also, which is the sort of the intersection of human figures and the work that I've been doing.
Yeah, in the summer we have a couple canoe trips to see some of the petroglyphs in the area, but I imagine you know of a lot more. So someone in the chat said that they're not a club member, but they would love to hear more about archaeology related to the Revolutionary War.
And I'll say for that topic, right now, the Maryland Historical Trust, my office, my colleagues and I, we have a grant to do work studying Rochambeau's encampments in Maryland for the Revolutionary War. So Stephanie Soder, who's the research archaeologist, she's leading that project. And we do have volunteer opportunities when we've been out in the field on that project, but also she'd be someone who might consider speaking on that topic for the club. So I'll put her email in the chat.
Thank you so much. That's great. Daniel put in the connection methods for researching after items are found would be one. A talk on books and study suggestions. At least that is what people from Marshy have asked about. And Dawn said she'd be interested in a talk about the local petroglyphs. I don't know if any of you know anyone with expertise on those.
Harford County Northern chapter is Dan. I'm not doing well on names.
Dan Coates.
I haven't heard from Dan. Have you?
No.
Okay. Dan Coates is the one that had been doing the greatest number of presentations in the immediate past.
Thank you.
CAT program is Tom.
Zach, you want to describe the CAT program a little bit?
Sure. So the CAT program means the Certified Archaeological Technician Program. It's organized by the Archaeological Society of Maryland, but I serve as one of the mentors. I think probably you do too as well, Kat. And what it is basically a way that people who volunteer doing archaeology can do it more systematically. And so they can keep track of their volunteer hours. There are required workshops, there are extra kind of bonus workshops. And it's a way to keep track of all of this learning and volunteering and be recognized by the Archaeological Society of Maryland for completing a certain amount of hours and hitting those requirements. So it's self-driven and self-paced, but it's a way that if people do volunteer in archaeology regularly, to get some sort of extra recognition for that. And there are occasionally, like some of our projects, if they're very small or sensitive projects, we'll say we need cat folks as our volunteers because we need people who are specifically training to be archaeology to do better archaeology to help us on these projects. So there are occasionally perks like that.
Thank you.
And I guess if you're interested in signing up for that, it's through the Archaeological Society of Maryland, and I'll put Tom's email address so you can email him.
I was just going to ask you that next. Someone else in the chat said that they were wondering if you knew anything about volunteer opportunities with Mount Calvert Historical and Archaeological Park and what they are currently studying on the property.
So for Mount Calvert, I don't know for sure, but what I've heard, so this again, this could be inaccurate, but I've heard that they're focusing on the Native American occupations at Mount Calvert now. And so they're, but I don't know more than that really. So that's, I think, the current research interest at Mount Calvert, but that would be contacting Prince George's County's archaeologists through MNC PPC to learn more. And that would be Kristen Monteperdo. I'll put her email address in the chat.
Thank you. I didn't realize that PG County had their own archaeology department, similar to Howard County.
Montgomery County does as well through their parks program.
Okay, thank you. So Jocelyn asked about public archaeology programs at the Mac Lab and if we've taken field trips there. And so when it was open, I know NHSM did have a couple of field trips there that Jane, our trip organizer, set up, but I believe they're still closed to the public for construction at the Mac Lab right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they're still closed. I think they're hoping to open up in the spring, but again, that could be misinformation. The reason the Mac Lab is closed currently is because they're doing a large expansion project. They've basically hit the end of how much they could curate. So now they're building another curation wing. And so they'll be opening up again to great public fanfare, I hope, in the spring. I think that's what I've heard.
Dan, Kelly Palich in Howard County has been very active with young kids and older kids in her excavations. You might want to reach out to her. I don't have her email to hand.
I have her email. I can send it to everyone. I don't know if I can find it quick enough for the chat.
Cap, the first part of that was directed specifically at you, but I jumped over it, and I do know Kelly Palich has called for volunteers to help on Kids Day down in Howard County.
I can put Kelly's email in the chat. And I responded to Dan with a couple of kids' activity ideas.
Just looking through the chat to see if I missed anything else. So any other topics of interest from our participants? Well, I definitely want to thank all of our presenters for all of the resources you provided and all the email addresses and people to contact. And I think we're all very looking forward to the symposium. That sounds like a really great experience.
Thank you. I hope so. I'll be sending, if we got any presenters here, I'll be sending out the next round of oh, Kat's here, and you're with Reagan. So I'll be sending out an encompassing call for abstracts and titles very shortly, and working on on a schedule, a sequence to make sure that folks that are coming from further distances have enough time to get there comfortably. So that's the next step.
Excellent.
Are any of your members, out of curiosity, or any of your members also members of the Archaeology Institute of America?
I do not know. I will have to ask.
They have a Baltimore chapter. So I think maybe that goes back also to what are your chapter members interested in addition to the fine ideas that have been put into the chat here.
Is the Archaeological Institute of America largely a professional organization?
No, it's the oldest archaeology group in the country. Professional and avocational as well. I think they sponsor trips to various sites globally. They're not just a Maryland organization, but they do have a Maryland chapter or Baltimore chapter, actually, specifically. They've reached out to me, but it's always conflicted with my class schedule. So,
Well, thanks for letting us know about them. I will definitely be looking into them.
abbreviation is AIA.
Well, thank you everyone for coming and all your ideas. Have a good night.